Hello, this is the Mushroom Wizard, and I'm returning yet again with another presentation regarding the mushrooms found in Saskatchewan and the ways in which we go about identifying and picking those mushrooms. So, today we're going to be looking at kind of a fun group of unrelated mushrooms that I chucked together that just didn't seem to fit anywhere else and were kind of more on the bizarre end of things. So, today we'll be looking at the Oddballs of Saskatchewan. And these are edible mushrooms. So the genre include Horn Oyster, that's a bit of a mouthful, Horn Oyster, yeah. Hymenopellis, Liotia, Schizophilum, there's a name there, and Spatularia. So what do I mean by oddballs? Again, edible mushrooms in Saskatchewan that don't fit into any other category, and mushrooms that are truly odd. The first mushroom we're going to look at is the deep root mushroom, Hymenopellis furfuracea. And that scientific name may be wrong. This seems to be bounced between several different genera. Uromancipalia is the other one, I think, something like that. But that's just seems to be the most current one, according to many authors. So, a strange-looking mushroom. It looks like basically a flying saucer sitting on top of this big, tall, thin tower. So it is gray-brown to brown in color, convex, but flattening out fairly quickly, and then by maturity having developed this shallow umbo that is inside this sort of depression almost. So umbilicate in that sense, that's what you would call that shape. So these are smooth and sticky when young. They become wrinkled and uneven with age, and you can see that wrinkling there. The margin is smooth, and these grow up to about 5 inches in diameter. But this is probably several species, and the range is quite dramatic. Sometimes you see them quite small, and they've matured, and they're only like, say, 1 inch or 2 inches. So likely you're looking at several species using one species name as a group name for the most part. Here's a size reference. And you can see how exaggerated some of those stipes are in comparison to that stipe up top. So the gills are cream and they tan with age. They are adnate. They are close to subdistant, so a bit of variation there. There are frequent short gills, and this produces a white spore print. The stipe is bizarre. It is white at the apex, and becoming tan towards the base. These are bulbous or rooting. Those you can see are bulbous, but sometimes it'll taper there a bit at the end. They have a central attachment. These are tough and fibrous, and much of that stipe may actually be buried beneath the ground. And the stipe is up to 10 inches high, but only ever about a ½ inch thick. So that's very unusual dimensions for a stipe. You can see there how strange these mushrooms look. If you were to see those very, very small, you'd be like, yeah, okay, that's normal, like a cone cap mushroom. But these are quite a bit larger. So taxonomy is presently unclear. These could be Hymenopellis, they could be Zerula, they could be Odomanciala, and they all seem to be presently accepted for some reason. So probably some arguments going on among mycologists. These are Soprobik. They attach directly to the rotting, buried roots of dead hardwoods. And they appear terrestrial as a result, but they are in fact attached to those roots. They are solitary to scattered, and these are found summer through fall. They are good to eat. They have a mild taste. The stipe, however, is too tough to eat. And you can imagine how tough that stipe has to be as thin and tall as it is, and then yet supporting such a wide cap on the top. Then these are for intermediate mushroom pickers. The next one is called a Splitgill This is Schizophilum commune. This is a mushroom that in many guidebooks will be considered inedible, but is in fact considered a delicacy in certain countries. So it is a polypore, I guess. The bracket is white to gray to grayish lilac to tan. So quite a bit of variability in terms of coloration. It is fan-shaped to eccentric to shaped kind of like a seashell. It has a sessile attachment. So what that means is that it's attached to the wood without any stipe being present at all. It is velvety to the touch up top there. It is tomentose along the margin, and that's what you get from the velvety. It's kind of like hairy, and it's often got this lobed sort of look to it. And then these are fairly leathery. They grow up to about 2 inches in diameter, so not very big. We'll just return to that previous photo. You can see how lobed that looks. What I mean by that and how eccentric that is. On the bottom of the split gill here, we're seeing what appear to be strange split apart gills. These are actually folds. So I do believe that this is kind of unique among mushrooms. It is just a folded polypore, and perhaps there are pores along those. I'm not entirely familiar with this species, though it does occur here fairly regularly. There we go, and you can see those gills. I'm using those exclamation points with my fingers when I say that. Gills, because they're not actually gills, they're just weird folds. And I say that there. They are white to gray in color, not gills, but fertile folds. Bizarre, immediately recognizable. This mushroom produces a white spore print. There you can see it, and you can tell what mushroom it is just from the spore print. These are Suprobik. They grow directly on decaying hardwoods. They are solitary to gregarious. Sometimes they clump together in large numbers like you're seeing it do here. These are found spring through fall. You can see that fuzzy downturned margin there. So the edibility is entirely subjective. A lot of people consider this to be poor in terms of edibility, but choice if you're from certain countries where this is commonly eaten. Where this is eaten tends to be tropical countries because being leathery and tougher, it doesn't rot nearly as quickly as a lot of other mushrooms will. This also has some potential medicinal benefits that you may want to look up. And these are for beginner mushroom pickers because really, what else can this be? It's that bizarre. Next mushroom we're going to look at is one of the two cups that we will see here. This is the Scarlet Elf Cup, Sarcocypha austriaca. And there's other Scarlet Elf Cups that look pretty much the same as this that may also be occurring here, but we're going to go with the species which does occur here for the time being. So the fruiting body is scarlet red inside, then pinkish to orangish outside. It is cup-shaped. It's got this kind of cartilaginous feel, similar to what you would expect from any of the Pizzazza species or anything in the, like a morel stipe, I suppose. If you have eaten a morel, you know the stipes have that same consistency to them. These become slightly wrinkled in the center as they grow older. The margin is pale. You can see that there. And then they also may be raised up upon a short stipe. They grow up to about 3 inches across. Here you can see some size references for you. Certainly a striking mushroom. These are Suprobik. They grow directly upon dead and rotting hardwood. Sometimes they'll be growing from buried wood and appearing terrestrial. These are found scattered, not usually in a group like you're seeing here, and they occur in the springtime into the summer. In terms of edibility, these are considered choice. They have a mild taste. They're for beginner mushroom pickers. This is one of the more interesting ideas that I've seen done with cup fungi, where you can use it by stuffing it with other mushrooms and then baking it or eating it however you will. Next, we have the other cupped fungus that would be occurring here. That's the orange peel fungus, Alluria Orantia. The fruiting body is bright orange in color. It's cup-shaped, rubbery or cartilaginous. There is a white powder bloom that's sometimes found across the margins there. And we would call that pruinose. That's what the word would be. These grow up to about 2 inches across, and they produce white spores. And yeah, here's the size reference for you. Not the biggest mushroom. Again, you can use it for eating in just exactly what we saw by stuffing it with something, baking it after, or not. These are saprotrophic. They occur often on disturbed soil, relatively rare in Saskatchewan. These occur late summer through to fall, and they grow in small groups, or else they will clump together like you're seeing here. They have a fairly decent taste. I have found them twice now. Mild, not bad, not great, kind of rubbery. I found for intermediate mushroom pickers, they are easily mistaken for pizizas, which I am not including here because I probably forgot to, but we will talk about pizizas at a later date. So what we're looking at now is the yellow earth tongue, Spatularia flavida. So the fruiting body is yellow in coloration. It is tongue or fan shaped with the upper portion kind of wrinkled. The stipe is smooth, rubbery, and kind of malleable in texture. They're beautiful mushrooms. They grow up to about 2 inches high, 1 inch wide. They have a yellowish brown or tan spore prints. And you can see a size reference. They're not very big. These are actually more closely related to things like morels and the false morels than they are to other mushrooms that we'd be looking at. These are Soprobik in nature. They grow on forest duft and on the decaying wood of conifers, like heavily decayed wood that's often scattered on the ground. These are found midsummer through to fall, and they often form rings. They'll grow in clumps or form a ring or an arc. When injured, it's interesting, these will release a compound that repels attacking fruit flies. So that's cool. And there you can see it kind of like that arc beginning to form, and eventually that could turn into a ring. Edibility is relatively poor. These are very chewy, tasteless. They are relatively common in Saskatchewan, but you can use them to make an attractive garnish. Or if you're doing like a mushroom mix of wild mushrooms that all look the same, chuck a couple of these in there and you'll brighten up the dish. Good for beginner mushroom pickers because you're not going to mistake it for anything else. That's a very cute picture I found on the internet. They're all looking at each other, and they got a little child there. The next mushroom will be the Shoehorn Oyster. This is the one with the fun genus name. So Hohenbuehelia petaloides. So it's grayish brown, fading to beige. It's tongue shaped or rolled into like a depressed funnel, often creating this sort of bizarre multi-lobed body as many of these cups or caps cluster together. It's eccentric in its profile, sticky if you touch it. The margin is turned outwards. Even as it turns upwards, it should retain that kind of outwards turn there. And then it's up to about 4 inches in diameter per cap, but the whole big mess of it could be quite a bit larger. Right, there's what we're looking at. It's like an oyster that grows from the earth. Very strange. The gills are off-white, turning yellowish to tan with age. They're very, very decurrent, deeply decurrent. Crowded together, frequent short gills. This produces white spores. And then the stipe is the same color as the gills, turning white at the base. And then they're cylindrical to rooting and often deep beneath the ground if they're rooting. Velvety at the base there. Central, lateral, or eccentric in terms of its attachment. So pretty variable there. And they grow up to about 1 inch high. So this is not a very big mushroom. There again, it just looks bizarre. Soprobik. So that's what you would expect from something called an oyster, but this is found in areas with heavily decayed wood debris or wood chips on the ground or under it. And it's scattered to gregarious, often clumping together. Found summer through the fall. They're good. These actually are related to oyster mushrooms of the Pleurotus genus and are for intermediate mushroom pickers. And this is the last mushroom here. This is the jelly baby, Liotia lubrica. Got an ASCII there. Once again, that should tell you that this is going to be related to morels and false morels and ilk. So the ASCII is yellow to brown to olive, turning dark green with age. It is lobed, eccentric, and uneven. It is slimy when wet. It is cartilaginous. The margin, if you can call it a margin, is enrolled wherever the margin occurs. Sometimes it looks like it's occurring in the center of the ASCII, other times on the outer portions. These grow up to about 2 inches across. Those ones look more cap-like, more ASCII-like, but you can see on the bottom left how enrolled that margin is. Not a very big mushroom. Here's some more photos. Younger, they haven't turned that snot green yet. So the stipe is yellow, bruising dark green, and it has these minute green scales occurring up it. You can see that very clearly there. It is cylindrical, so the same width throughout. It has a central or eccentric attachment to that ASCII, and it's up to about 3 inches high. These are Suprobik mushrooms. They are terrestrial, or they will be growing upon decaying wood. These are preferential to heavily mossy habitats, and that often tells me too that they will like a lot of moisture. These clump together and are often joined at the stipe base, and they are found spring through fall. They have a good edibility, mild taste. Like with anything that's slimy to the touch, you're just going to want to wipe it off after you pick it and wash it off later on before you cook it. Get anything that's stuck to it off. These are good for intermediate mushroom pickers, but it does have a lookalike of note here. This is Cudonia circinanans, the red-legged jelly baby. It does look quite a bit different in terms of its stipe there. It's quite a bit darker, and then it has a yellowish, creamish ASCII at the top. So really, when it's younger, when you're picking Liotia lubrica, it can look a bit more closely like Cudonia circinans, but I mean the color is very different, right? Cudonia circinans, just to mention, is dangerously toxic. It does contain gyromitrin, which is something that will turn into monomethylhydrazine in your stomach, which is a potent toxin and can kill you. It can damage your red blood cells and other such nasty stuff. So just be aware when you pick these. So I hope you enjoyed this presentation. This is some of the weirder species that just had nowhere else to go. So this is the Mushroom Wizard. I'll see you next time with yet another presentation regarding the mushrooms of Saskatchewan.